The other will change.
Yeah.
How about you? Middle. There's 3 girls and I'm the middle girl. There were 5 of us. And I was the oldest of 5. Brother next to me and 3 little sisters. And they were my children. Here's mine. 10. 21. Watch it. And somebody asked me, do you want any water? Take care of it. I said, my mom did when I was 2. She used to say, watch out for your little brother. Oh, okay. Yeah, how does that work? Yeah, exactly.
Everybody know what comes next?
One.
Huh?
A line or 100.
I heard 100.
And then a line.
A line.
Yeah.
Then
0.
0. And what does that represent?
0 to 100.
0 to 100.
Your health.
Yeah. Your health and your function, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Right on.
'Cause that's what we're here to talk about, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. So before I get started, I'd like to ask you guys, poll you guys, what are some questions that you have about supplements?
Well, I guess the first thing is, are they necessary?
Yep. 1. Supplements. Necessary.
How can you tell a good one?
Yeah, that's a good question. And a complicated answer, right?
Yes, man.
You say quality.
Yes.
Can they replace diet?
Oh,
Oh, he's made it?
How much do you, I was thinking, how much do you, of that, do you take? Of the replacement?
How much,
How
yeah.
much? of it? I know people who take 10 and 12 pills.
yep.
That's the way I shy away from taking supplements because I don't like taking pills in the first place. And
Oh, okay.
so it bothers me to think I have to take 8 pills in the morning.
Any other questions generically? I know you guys all have specific questions for yourselves. Anything?
Overall effect. Can we, is that in there?
There's a word for that. What is it? Efficacy, right? Yeah. Is it efficacious? Yeah.
That's a big one, Doc.
That sounds like a big college word.
Breaking out my doctorate for that one. All right, guys, welcome. We're a couple minutes after 6:30, so let's go ahead and get started. Tonight we got a few, mostly some veterans in the crowd. 1 rookie. Okay.
Rookie?
Yeah, this is your first workshop, right?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
We were at the dinner.
You're at the dinner, yeah, absolutely. So nobody's a true rookie. Everybody's been around for a couple visits anyways. Come on in, guys, have a seat. Can you pull some chairs together?
Oh, heavens, yes.
Yep.
Move down.
Oh, center
Wants to go that direction
section.
for him. He wants us to go that way.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
So welcome in. This is probably the 3rd most important talk I give. Number 1 is going to be your report of findings, right? You got to understand what health is. You got to understand how you heal, how you function, how we're going to get you there. Probably 2nd most important one is the predecessor to this talk, which is Nutrition 101, which kind of lays down the basics of how to get those right nutrients into your body. And then this is the follow-up to that talk. So I'm going to cover some of the stuff I covered in Nutrition 101, a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of overlap, but it's also going to be the step off into, okay, now that we know what proper nutrition, proper diet is and its role in your health, what do you do with supplements? Right? And we're going to answer some of these questions about supplements here tonight. And then if you have any specific questions, because no two of you are exactly alike, no matter how closely related you may be. No matter how many years you've spent under the same roof, you probably have slightly different needs depending on your history, number one. Number two, genetics do play a role in this, and not genetics in that they're fixed and you're locked in forever, but genetics in that it's hard to change genetics without drastic lifestyle change. So we're going to cover all that tonight. The reason I do this is because so many people miss the boat on nutrients and supplementation and its role in healing. And so the backbone of this is number one, that your health, if we're going to get you to health, we have to focus on your function. And that actually requires stepping off of this symptom boat or the symptom train. The United States is on a symptom train, isn't it? If you got a symptom, we know how to handle that. We got a medication, we got a supplement, we got an oil for that. You know, you go to your chiropractor for symptom treatment. You go to your medical doctor for symptom treatment. You go to your massage therapist for symptom treatment. And if we're going to get healthy, we actually have to jump off of the symptom boat. My dream practice, I never talk about how you feel. Because in my dream practice, all we're focused on is getting you healthier. The problem is we've been living this life for so long thinking about my health as a function of symptom that it's almost impossible for us to get there without taking some baby steps along the way. So I do still communicate health oftentimes in terms of symptoms, but just know that for you to feel a loss of function, you have to lose approximately 40% function for your first symptom to show up. So how do we prevent ourselves from getting there, right? Because does anybody ever want to feel bad?
No.
Only when it's appropriate, when something has actually gone wrong, right? If you break your leg, do you want to feel the pain, or do you just want to walk around with that hanging leg just damaging itself all the time, right? Pain is appropriate when there's actual damage. And you can get there instantaneously, but most of us, we're making these decisions that get us closer and closer to here, and we wait until here to do anything about it. And if you're like most, males, just throw some dirt in it, right? American men. I know some women like that too. We ignore our pain for the sake of others as well, to push through and be there and be that support. But what do they say on the airplane? Put your own mask on first. Your mask is the most important mask because you can't lead others unless you yourself are doing those same things. So I'm gonna be talking a lot of personal stories with this as well. And I've gone down this journey too. I started chiropractic because I quit breathing. Symptom, right?
Yeah.
And then a chiropractor intervened. He adjusted my atlas, got the pressure off the vagus nerve. My lungs started functioning better, and I've never had a breathing problem since. But along the way, I had a dairy sensitivity. Didn't know about it. I was a gassy little kid. That makes for some social awkwardness, right? Maybe push me towards being a doctor, right? Dive into the books. God's got a reason for everything, right? But that dairy sensitivity has since turned into a dairy allergy and severe digestive distress because nobody identified or did anything about it for me, right? Until I took responsibility for my health and started saying, I won't do it. By that point, it's too far gone. Now it's an allergy. Now I just have to avoid it. If you catch it while it's a sensitivity, it doesn't have to be. And we talk a lot about sensitivities in our nutrition 101. But then the supplementation. I don't think I took a multivitamin other than the Flintstones chewable until I turned 30.
Sure.
Right? And people are asking, is it necessary? And I truly 100% believe that at least a multivitamin is necessary for every single adult American. That's my short answer. We're going to get into this in just a minute. It's actually my first topic in the PowerPoint. But then I start taking the supplement. Then I realized that there's supplements beyond just that multivitamin, right? There's supplements for things. And what are they for? Well, they're for addressing a loss of function. If you have a loss of or a deficiency of magnesium, and you also get tremors, maybe addressing that magnesium deficiency may help with the tremors. If you're getting sick all the time and you're deficient in vitamin C or vitamin D3, taking the vitamin C and D3 may make it so that you get sick less often because those are necessary nutrients for your immune system to function properly. So we can go through all that. So I've definitely broadened my scope of what I take on a daily basis. Just to cover this straight off the bat, I take this every single day, the daily essentials for men. And then I also take, what did I just add? I don't think it's on the table right now, the Max Cleanse. Max Cleanse. And I also like to keep vitamin D3 and the vitamin C on hand for when I need extra. Zinc I added in over 2020 because of its role in fighting off viruses, helping your immune system fight off viruses. But the zinc doesn't fight the viruses, the vitamin C doesn't fight the viruses, and the vitamin D3 doesn't fight the viruses. What fights the viruses? The innate intelligence inside of us that controls the immune system, right? Because a dead person has an immune system. How well does it work? It doesn't, because their innate intelligence is gone, because that's their soul, right? Once that soul exits stage left, there's nothing left. So we don't feed the immune system, we feed the body, the innate intelligence, the raw materials, so that it can do with it what it needs to in those different symptoms. If we don't get that, if we don't get that idea behind supplementation, you're going to start flushing money down the toilet, right? Because if we start treating symptoms with pills, we're basically practicing medicine.
Yes.
All right, maybe with slightly less side effects, but sometimes with deadly side effects too. Anybody ever hear of vitamin D3 toxicity? Yeah, you can do that with any fat soluble vitamin. Not vitamin D3 toxicity. You have to vitamin A toxicity, or vitamin D, or vitamin E, or vitamin K. So yeah, absolutely, I believe that some supplements are necessary. Are all supplements necessary? Absolutely not. You don't need to take 12 pills, right?
No.
Right. Yeah, and I think that packet is like seven on a daily basis. But there's also a difference for size. There's a difference for male and female, and then you can get very specific with this. And this is one of my plans, as I continue to educate myself on this, to get more specific, to be able to hire staff to get more specific with this, with testing for supplementation. So it might be a little bit more expensive on the front end, but over time we're being more specific with what you need to take and how much you need to take. And that can get really beneficial for somebody and pay for itself over and over and over again. So long-term plans, we got to transform healthcare, don't we?
Yes, amen.
Right?
We're
Anybody want to
praying for
keep
it.
doing the same thing over and over and expect different results? Because I can then sign you up for a mental institution, right? Because that's the definition of insanity. So we got to start way back in World War I if we want to understand supplementation and the recommendations by our federal government as far as nutrition is concerned. Back then, they started to do these rations, and they need to understand what do soldiers need on a daily basis. And so they assessed and they identified these these micronutrients that every single one of us needs on a daily basis. And then they assessed the food supply. And they said, based off of the general food supply, here's what you should be getting on a daily basis. And that's kind of where you see that nutrition label and all those recommendations coming off of that. But they broke it down into protein, carbs, fat, cholesterol, dietary fiber, 10 of the vitamins, and 9 of the minerals. So unfortunately, we found our way into this place where half of us will get cancer in our lifetime. Most of us will get some form of heart disease in our lifetime. Between those two, almost 2/3 will die of one of those two causes. And we'll get obesity and diabetes and osteoporosis along the way. All of these are diseases of deficiency. Now, we also talked about it in the last couple of workshops that we've done as diseases of inflammation as well. But deficiency leads to inflammation. It's not the main cause. It's one of many causes of inflammation. So you have to understand the role. So absolutely, we need to be looking at these things as far as its role in prevention of these diseases. Because if you wait until you get it, it's too late most of the time. Not completely too late. I believe that if you're still able to take breath, that God is still able to heal you, and he chooses to do so through natural means most of the time. Because, right, if you eat junk food and hot fudge syrup and brownies and chocolate chip cookie dough every single day for 10 years, what are your odds of getting diabetes?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. And if you never change that behavior, doesn't matter how much you pray for God to heal you from your diabetes. That probably does, because that's a sin of overindulgence, right? And so, while we can overindulge in those things, we are also underindulging in some things too. And diabetes is also underindulging in the right things as well. So we have to look at the nutritional content of our food. Now, this word, essential, you guys have heard the word essential before. It means something very specific in the world of supplementation and nutrients. An essential nutrient is one that your body cannot produce on its own. Glucose is not an essential nutrient. Why? Because your body can produce glucose almost out of nothing. If all you ate was fat and fat and protein, your body could make glucose out of that. And so people saying, oh, I need sugar, or I need my sugar, I'm hypoglycemic. It's possible that they might have a condition that's keeping their body from producing that glucose, but in general, our bodies are designed to be able to produce glucose on its own, to break it down out of other things, right? But your body cannot create about 20 different amino acids. Amino acids are the backbone of the protein chains that build up muscle. So we need those essential amino acids. A lot of these vitamins that you're taking, they're essential vitamins because your body cannot produce them on their own. And so then there's also the non-essential ones, the ones that your body does produce. So glucose being a non-essential micronutrient. I wouldn't call it a vitamin, but your body does require it for certain operations. Things like proper thyroid regulation, you need glucose for. Most people don't realize that, because most people that have thyroid conditions have it because their hormones have gone so out of whack because they've eaten too much glucose. Throw that one for a loop in your brain for a second. You're getting the diabetes because you're getting too much of the thing that you need for that thing to run properly. And that's very true of a lot of things. So we have to understand what's essential and what's not. Now, there's essential macronutrients, essential micronutrients. A macronutrient is classified as either a carbohydrate, a fat, or a protein. Now, macronutrients, oftentimes we associate with calories. And we've been taught very well how to count calories in our country because we assume that a calorie in equals a calorie out. If we do that, then we won't gain weight. And if we don't gain weight, then we won't become obese. And if we don't become obese, we won't get heart disease. Guess what? The percentage of marathoners that die of heart disease is just as high as the rest of the country. Why? Because they go have a beer after they're done running that marathon, right? Because they got to kick their carbs back up. Yeah, hopefully not. But what do they have at the end of the race is a beer tent, right? I've done a couple of these. And they got this big old beer tents with all that beer. And it's like, it actually tastes pretty good. A nice cold beer after a long run. I won't do that again, for sure. But when you're looking at just calories, and you guys might want to write this down, there's about three calories per gram of carbohydrates. There's about 4 calories per gram of fat, and about 9 calories per gram of fat, and 4 calories per gram of protein. I got that a little flipped for a second. So 3, 9, and 4. Now, what does that mean? That means that you eat less of this to get more energy. You eat more of this to equal the same energy. You eat more of this to equal the same energy. So which one's the most efficient one to eat? The fat. Yeah. Now, in nature, when you're finding these things, the carbohydrates are unrefined. They come with all sorts of stuff. They come with fiber. They come with most of the nutrients. You look at the most nutrient-rich foods per ounce, that's actually going to be in the carbs. But where do we consume our carbs? Yeah, cereals, grains, like that's where we're getting it. And then you take someone's bread away and they're like, how am I going to get my fiber? How about a salad? How about an apple? How about anything that God created on this planet that grows out of the ground or off of a tree or out of a vine? Yeah. Carbs aren't bad for you. We're just getting too much refined carbohydrates. We're getting them processed. Now, if you process a fat, it's still a fat, You didn't necessarily take anything out of it, but by processing it, what do you do to the molecular bonds inside? You denature it, and you make it very inflamed. So the same thing's true. The more you process that, and the more you process that, the more it hurts you. But what about protein?
Mhm.
All right, what's our main protein source? Meat. We don't necessarily process that. I mean, we do. Hot dogs are less healthy for you than the actual cow or animal that it came from. But if that cow is unhealthy because it's part of this industrial agricultural machine that cranks out hot dogs, right?
Yeah.
Then it's going to be an unhealthy cow providing unhealthy meat. And then you add in all those nitrates and all the other preservatives to try to keep it on the shelf longer. And it's going to make you unhealthy. So a big thing diet-wise, as far as macronutrients, is let's get them in their ideal state. Now, that doesn't mean don't cook them ever. I'm not proposing a raw diet, but a less processed diet, for sure. The closer we get to that, the better you're going to be overall. Now, micronutrients are things like vitamins and minerals. So some of the most common deficiencies in micronutrients would be something like vitamin A and your carotenes. These are very prevalent in things like spinach and your root vegetables in general, but sweet potatoes have a lot of vitamin A. Another one would be vitamin E. So these are both fat-soluble vitamins, but again, very prevalent in spinach and a lot of those dark leafy greens, but also in almonds, nuts, and seeds. And then vitamin C, we always go to citrus fruits for this, but guess what has more of that in there? Spinach. Yeah, absolutely. So then we look at vitamin B1. It's another citrus-rich vitamin. Vitamin B6 and your root vegetables, again, a lot of sweet potato there, also citrus. And then, oh yeah, all your leafy, very prevalent in your leafy greens again. So what should we eat more of? Leafy greens.
Mhm.
So minerals, what are minerals? They're more like rocks. If these are more alive, like antioxidants, like actually have some of their own intelligence where they can do something in a raw state, these aren't so alive, or at least not in this state. This is pretty dead.
Say minerals don't. What-
They don't have any active intelligence inside of them. I would call them more
as-
dead
Oh, okay.
than like a vitamin
Of
would
them
be.
vitamins.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, think of antioxidants when you think of vitamins. Not all vitamins are antioxidants, but most of them are. Things like vitamin C, yeah, vitamin E, selenium is more of a new.
So why do they tell you to eat a lot of, I mean, I hear them talk about eating salmon and avocados all
Yeah.
the time.
But that's not necessarily, I'm not saying that's bad. It's just different,
Okay.
right? These are
Okay.
categories of micronutrients.
Okay,
So
okay.
just a little thing. When you're thinking of vitamins, think alive. When you're thinking of minerals, think
Okay.
not alive. I don't want to say
Okay.
dead because it's still contributing to life.
Okay,
Right? So phosphorus is a big micronutrient. You find that often in seafood. Salmon specifically is a great one for phosphorus. Calcium is one. An example, a very popular one. It's very deficient in American bones, but not deficient in Americans' diets. And I'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into this. Magnesium is one that most Americans are deficient in, over 90%. That's found in things like lentils and legumes and beans, also nuts and seeds. Sunflower seeds is a great source of magnesium. Iron, you can find that in legumes again. That's one that a lot of women are deficient in because of that monthly cycle. And menopausally, it just changes as well. Zinc is another big one. You can find that in seafood, legumes, nuts and seeds again. Potassium, if you're getting lots of cramps, you might want to look at your magnesium and potassium levels and try getting some more of that from your food supply. That'll absolutely help out with that. Copper is one that's absolutely nuts and seeds, eat a lot of that. You can overdo all of these. Copper is one that we learned about a lot in our pathology classes just because of how it can affect you neurologically. But most people end up deficient in that. Selenium is one of the big antioxidant minerals as well. Comes in your seafood, your legumes, nuts and seeds. But the big overarching thing that you find out from all this is in spinach. Again, right? Spinach is awesome. It's a superfood because it contains so much, and it's not one of those harsh tasting vegetables either.
That's what Popeye is all
I know. You just eat it and you just get big muscles right off the bat. So
How does kale compare with spinach? I've heard they're both really good.
they're both very, very good for you. The green leafy vegetable family in general
Like dark
is
green.
going to be nutrient rich. Yeah, the darker green you get, the better. Now, cucumbers are an exception there. You have to go to the inside of the plant to see how green it is. Those are actually more fruit. But the problem with the American diet right now is that we're getting so much food that is nutrient poor and calorie rich. In fact, focused on those macros and not focused on those micros, right? The macros are not inherently evil, right? I didn't say anything bad about any of the macros. I'm not saying cut out your carbs. I'm not saying cut out, your proteins or cut out your fats. Let's just get them more natural, because everything that's wrong with the American diet is that it's all processed. It's all so processed. Even in the agricultural process, it's processed. And it's done that way for efficiency and cost management. And unfortunately, the biggest cost in our country right now is not the food we put in our bodies. It's nowhere near the cost of our healthcare system.
Yes.
Almost 1/5 of our gross domestic product is healthcare costs. And it's not because our foods are so great for us. A major problem is that it's not so great. So we got to switch it, right? So agricultural practices being a big one. Pollution actually decreases the nutrient content of our food. You guys know and realize that a head of broccoli right now has about 30% of the nutrient content that it did in the 1930s when the FDA made the original recommendations. Yeah, 1930s, or I guess that's when World War II started, but yeah. So we got to update our diets, we got to update our recommendations. This is one of the main reasons why I take a multivitamin, is because so much less in our broccoli, in our kale, in our cauliflower, in our spinach even, and then you think about, okay, how long did it take the spinach to get from the farm to the store? How long did it take me to get to the store? And then how long did it take for me to take it out of my fridge once I got it home and into my mouth? Yeah. Spinach has a half-life. If it's over a week old, it's down to less than 10% of its nutritional content from when you took it out of the ground.
Wow, out of the ground.
And that's a superfood, right? That's something that's always good for you whenever you put it in your mouth. People talk about things like grapefruit as having, the positive impact calorie-wise, nutritionally. I think spinach would be great that way as well, but because of all these steps, right? And we don't always cook our spinach. I hope nobody cooks their spinach. Cooked spinach is nowhere near as good as raw spinach. But just cooking and preparing these foods, putting canned vegetables have less nutrient because they heat it up to seal the can. Just heating a vegetable will actually decrease it nutritionally. Freezing it denatures it just like heating it up does. Anytime you change the molecular bond, whether by changing the temperature high or low, it changes the molecular content and its bioavailability. So all of these things interfere. But other things, well, poor diet. Like I said, we're getting energy dense foods. We're getting high sugar foods. High sugar raises inflammation. Inflammation actually blocks absorption. So even if you get the foods straight from the ground with all of their nutrients in them, you might not be able to absorb it because of what's going on inside of your body. Right? If you're dealing with an autoimmune disorder, it can block your absorption. If you're in a fight or flight mode, if you're stressed, it's going to block that. Damaged fats, inflammation again. Processed foods, right? We talked about inflammation from processed foods. That's going to block it. Artificial sweeteners come in and interfere in the absorption process. Well, we got to look out for all those. Our body and lifestyle. Genetics, I said, played a role. Absolutely. Some cultures absorb some things differently. You realize that non-Caucasians, about 90% of the world's population, cannot tolerate dairy. Almost to a person. They are lactose tolerant until they stop breastfeeding. And then they never develop that lactase enzyme to kick in to drink cow's milk or goat's milk or sheep's milk or whatever. They just go into drinking water or teas or wines, right? And oftentimes they end up healthier because of it. Biological factors. If you're sick with something, if you have an autoimmune condition, especially, If you're taking certain medications, if you've had certain types of surgeries, it blocks absorption. Bariatric surgeries especially will block the absorption of a lot of these things. So people talk about getting a bypass in their stomach to help them lose weight. Losing weight's great, but you need those organs to function the way that God designed them to.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to absorb foods the same way. Lifestyle factors, being too sedentary. If you're too sedentary, your metabolism never gets high enough to absorb these. People with higher metabolism usually absorb nutrients better. Stress absolutely interferes with digestion. Alcohol, tobacco, drug, substance abuse in general, or substance use even, can block with the absorption of foods. Eating out, again, you're jumping back into that last category, a lot of processed foods anytime you go out. And then oral hygiene also plays a role in this too. If your teeth are rotting out, you're not going to be getting the same level of digestive enzyme production that your body knows how to do. But if you're not chewing it, it's not going to happen. Health conditions such as diabetes, cancer, and heart disease can also prevent proper absorption and assimilation of these foods. So those are all factors that can play a role in creating dysfunction in the absorption and assimilation. What's the answer? 5 essentials. 5 essentials are not something to sell. They're just laws and principles of how we heal and how we function, right? Chiropractic is not about me selling you an adjustment or giving you an adjustment. It's about making sure that your nervous system is healing and functioning well. Why? Because it controls the function and health of your body. If we don't address that, is there any way that we can be healthy? Not if there's interference there. And how do you know? Right? Because you can't feel it until you lose 40%. So it makes sense. We need to get that checked first. So if you have friends or family that are trying to get healthy and haven't had their nervous system looked at, they got to start there. Second would be that nutrition, right? That intelligence that God placed inside of us. It knows how to make us healthy, but if we're not giving it the right building blocks, you know, you're trying to replace yourself every 5 to 15 years at a cellular level, and it can't because it just doesn't have the right pieces. So it tries to finish that jigsaw puzzle as best it can with those missing pieces. Right? Mindset. You know, stressed mindset, one that knows or doesn't know how to be healthy is one that can't get healthy. I give this analogy all the time, but if I want to get to Miami, Florida, and I jump on I-80 and I start heading west, how long until I get there? How fast do I have to drive until I get there? How much intention do I have to have until I get there? It doesn't matter because I'm going the wrong way. Even if I turned around and head east, I still have to exit I-80 to get there, right? So you have to know the path. You also have to know that if you're not getting enough sleep and if you're not, you know, getting out of stress and creating peace in your life, if you're not in a good relationship and you're not surrounding yourself with healthy-minded people, that you're also not going to have a healthy mindset. So your psychology absolutely plays a huge role in your health. Oxygen and exercise, I feel like I talk about this ad nauseum, but really, exercise. Most of us don't get enough exercise. We have to get out. We have to move. Our bodies require it. It's built into our genes. And then toxicity, absolutely. We did a whole workshop on this 2 months ago on getting those toxins out, keeping those toxins out, and how they play a role in interfering with our health. So let's jump into mindset real quick. Number one, we have to understand what our body does when we allow the stress to take over. And it's easy to do, right? We've got all these people in our lives that are demanding something of us. Some people pay us to be able to demand stuff of us, right? It's called a job, you know, and we go to work and we do their things and we get caught behind deadlines and we start stressing out about that. And then we come home and then there's these little people around us that are constantly demanding things out of us. And if we get caught up behind those, then we're stressed out. And then we go to church and there's all these people around us, big or little, that are demanding things of us. And if we don't keep up, then we're buried in their stress as well. We get caught in stress in our society. And our smartphones don't help, do they? No. How smart it is how smart it sells you on things, right? And so we need to address the stress, not by focusing on the stress, but by creating peace. How do you create peace? You can't focus on stress to create peace. You have to find time, not find time, you have to make time, right? Because you'll never find it. Yeah, you spend your whole life looking for time. You'll never find it. There's 168 hours in a week. I don't care who you are. And you are the only one that gets to choose what you do with it. There are always consequences to those choices, right? If you don't go to work, you might not have the job next time, right? If you don't eat the food, then you might be hungry later. But you're the only one that gets to choose what to do with that time. Now, if you don't take responsibility for your time, if you let other people dictate that to you, here's what happens. You get stressed. What happens when you get stressed? Well, the sympathetic nervous system takes over from the parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic, you can label this as your rest and digest. If your parasympathetic is taken over, you digest food easily, you rest easily. If your sympathetic system takes over, this is your fight or flight mode. This is, I've released a tiger into this room, and we all have to get out of here immediately or fight off the tiger. Mm-hmm. Our bodies will prime. We will change neurologically. We'll get primed to fight. And all of this stuff loses blood. The blood goes to the muscles. So we stop being able to digest our food when we're stressed because we're in fight or flight. So what may be more important than taking a multivitamin today is finding ways to create peace in your life. Not letting others dictate what you're doing, but you taking that responsibility and control. You may still end up doing the same stuff, but at least having that control makes a big difference there. What does it do? Well, if you're not getting proper blood flow to your digestive organs because your brain is redirecting everything to your peripheral, you might get some indigestion. You might have some difficulty fully getting things down into your stomach and into your small intestines. You might get bloated a little bit because it's stuck there because the pH, the acidity in your stomach, is not quite right. The pH is not quite right in your digestion, and it comes out. You're a little gassy afterwards too. You might crave some caffeine or some sugar. You're living off of that because you're constantly wired or tired. It's just too much, and it feeds itself because you start getting more caffeine. What do you require? More caffeine because you develop a dependency on it. The way it works is there's there's receptors for specific cells or specific types of neurotransmitters in your brain. Caffeine goes in and fills those receptors. And so your brain actually grows more receptors when it's filled. And so guess what you need more of to fill those receptors all of a sudden? Caffeine, and it fills it up. And the same thing is true of all types of drug dependency, including alcohol. So you do the same thing with caffeine, which is why I switched to decaf about 8 years ago. It took me a process because I was actually addicted to the caffeine. I had to wean myself off. I went from full calf to about 3/4 calf to half calf to quarter calf, and now I'm at decaf, but decaf isn't uncaffeinated. It's lightly caffeinated, so I still have to watch it. But I do drink about 10 cups a day, so. It's a lot. I love coffee. Yeah, but not good for you. Coffee is, not the caffeine. So a healthy mindset is one that feeds that peace. And that starts with knowing what is health? Who's the author of health? Who gives us health? And knowing that it's a blessing and it's a miracle.
Yes.
I talk about things in generalities because, it's a lot. And sometimes it can feel like you're drinking out of a fire hydrant when you're sitting here. I mean, that's why I see a lot of the same faces over and over because there's so much and so much to miss. But you gotta just know that God's in control. He's created this miraculous body that we could spend hours just talking about one single organ, and we have, right? And sometimes we need to. But ultimately, it's a miracle. It's going to keep functioning so long as we do the right things. So let's focus on what those right things are. Healthy mindset, or peace mindset, chiropractic. So this comes down to the nervous system, right? For your heart to beat, for your lungs to breathe, for kind of your leg to heal, the signal has to run from your brain down the spinal cord, and out the nerves to every organ, cell, and tissue. It doesn't happen in any other way. We know that because if we separate the brain from the rest of your body, it stops. The intelligence can't express itself, and then the lung stuff, the heart stuff, the digestive system stops, and then it doesn't matter how many nutrients or supplements we take. We need the brain to be able to communicate with the body, and it does so through the spinal cord and through these nerves, and the spinal column in each individual vertebra here, they surround and protect your brainstem, your spinal cord, and those nerve roots. And when that's in its normal position, it works well. When it's out of position, it starts malfunctioning and dysfunctioning. And when that dysfunctions, and no supplement can fix it, no essential oil can fix it, no medication can fix it, no massage can fix it, only addressing the cause can fix it. And that's what chiropractic is designed to do, is address cause. Can massage help? Yes. Can physical therapy help? Yes. Is there a time and a place for medication? Yes. Can it help? It can help keep you alive in a crisis, but it's not going to help fix your spine. And so if we're going to keep your nervous system healthy, we have to make sure that we're addressing the alignment of the spine. What are some warning signs that you're out? Symptoms. If you have a symptom, very likely your nervous system is not expressing function to the full. And so it needs to be assessed. And so when you're having a headache, should we reach for the curcumin or the Tylenol or the daily defense or optimal omegas? I'm trying to think of things that I would recommend if someone was having a headache after I've adjusted them. No, right? Because we have to assess the nervous system to see if there's interference. If you're off at the top, you can get those headaches. If you're off down here, maybe your stress levels get higher. Maybe you get a little tight between the shoulders. Maybe you even have back pain. If we don't address the spine and the nervous system, we may never get to it. Even if we get a great massage, we get those muscles relaxed. We have to address the deficiencies. And the first biggest deficiency is we ignore the nervous system in today's healthcare system, unless you have a severe neurological symptom, and then they give you medication to cover up the symptom.
Yes.
Right? Or they tell you it's all in your head.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. So then we have to go and we have to address toxins, right? Because these can block the absorption. Things like plastics, right?
Yes.
Or plasticizers. You guys remember from the toxicity talk, which color of plastic is the worst?
Is it the blue?
It's anything other than white.
Anything other than white.
Yeah.
Anything other than-
Yeah. And when's it worst? In the presence of a hot liquid. Yeah. So if you're getting a hot coffee with a black lid, that steam's coming up, it's hitting it, it's condensing, and it's pouring it all back right down into your coffee. Right? So if you're storing something in a plastic, it should be dry and liquidless. Rice is an okay thing to store in a plastic. A clear plastic, ideally, or a white plastic, you know? But, you know, we don't. Cosmetics. How many more chemicals did we say a woman is exposed to than a man because of cosmetics? Thousands of chemicals, most of which are known carcinogens or interfere with the endocrine system, the hormone balance. Things like sodium lauryl sulfate makes your toothpaste foam. Guess what that is? Engine degreaser. Look in your toothpaste. If it has sodium lauryl sulfate, it's a known carcinogen. You're putting that on your teeth, in your mouth, every single day. Anybody know what that is?
A puffer, an inhaler.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I hope nobody knows what it is. But yeah, it's for the e-cigarettes.
I
Right, or
don't, I
vaping.
don't do it.
You don't
but
do
I
it, you just know
they
what
are.
it is, right? Kind of like you know the smell of marijuana, but you've never tried it.
Yes.
Yes, there you go. And then what kind of water is best? Not tap, not bottled, reverse osmosis.
Oh.
Yeah, reverse osmosis is best. And if you can get it from a source that remineralizes it afterwards, because right, God made these wells in specific environments to bring up with it certain nutrients that we need. If we just pull everything out, we rob it of the nutrients. If you're getting only reverse osmosis water, you might need some more minerals in your diet as well. So they're all around us. So we have to detox some to improve our gut health and digestion, our ability to absorb these things. And so we've got two different products for this. This one is brand new. I just started taking this one. This is a gentler daily detoxification. It just herbal, just gives you a little bit of what you need on a daily basis to help keep things moving, pushing out the toxins. This is a little bit more aggressive and intense. We used to only carry this. This one I would recommend probably once every 3 to 4 months. And that's what I was doing with it. You know, even being healthy, asymptomatic, I knew that I was exposed to too much, that I would need help occasionally getting this out. Now, most people think of detox in terms of bowel movements. right? Even though there's like 3 other systems that deal with it, namely the skin. Skin sweating gets out a lot of toxins. Sweating absolutely gets out a lot of toxins. It's probably the number one best way.
I must be totally detoxed then, because I do a lot of sweating.
Your kidneys are another system that deal with that. So urine gets out a lot of toxins. Your liver is another one, but there's this other thing that starts here, a long tube, and it ends down here, and it pulls out a lot of toxins. So most people think of that bowel movement in terms of that. So let's talk about this in terms of bowel movements. So this one, without it, I would have one fairly large bowel movement a day. Yeah, pretty regular. It was usually right around 7 a.m. on the ground. When I started taking that, it increased. Started to go from fairly large to very large, right? When I take this one, I go from one very large bowel movement to 3 very large bowel movements. Interesting.
Yes.
Because I didn't change what I'm eating. I just changed what my body is primed to pump out. Now this has things like activated charcoal that are very strong at binding to toxins and really binding to just about anything that your body's not supposed to be taking in. So that's why I don't recommend this all the time, because sometimes it can take out good stuff too. This one's not taking out everything, it's just helping prime the body to push out a little bit more. So that's probably the functional difference, right? Otherwise, it's 4 total capsules, 2 total capsules. Take 2 in the morning, 2 at night, 2 with a meal. That's the only real difference there. So both good for you, both necessary, I think, at certain points. I'm starting to include this one in my daily recommendations just across the board. So long as you don't have some sort of food sensitivity or allergy to the ingredients of that, which most people don't because it's hypoallergenic in dairy, nuts, seeds, gluten, all that stuff. So oxygen and exercise, this absolutely plays a role. We talked about sweat in this, but exercise itself improves digestion. It helps with absorption. A lot of it through metabolism. The more you move, the more you're going to require, and so the more it primes you to digest, right? Your digestive system goes so much better. And what does that even better is HIIT, high intensity interval training. If you just go for a walk for 30 minutes a day, that's good for you. Yes, absolutely. But what's even better than that is walking for 20 minutes, but 30 seconds of that, you're going really hard. And then 20 seconds of that, you're just strolling along, or maybe even stop to catch your breath. And then 30 seconds, you're going along, and then 20 seconds, you're stopped to catch your breath. Right? If you do that, we see your metabolism is boosted, your digestion is boosted for 36 hours compared to your metabolism is boosted for the 30 minutes where you're working out. So what should you do? Well, it depends on where you're at, right? Everybody can do HIIT. It's just a matter of what can you do. Not everybody can do a burpee. Not everybody can do a full-on push-up. Most people can do a wall push-up, right? Does this look too hard? No, most people can do that. Not everybody can get down on the floor and do one. So find your version, then find your speed. Find your max heart rate and aim for your max capacity. And your max heart rate is somewhere around your age, or 220 beats per minute minus your age. That's your maximum heart rate. On average, it can be a little different depending on your heart. And then just aim for that every time you work out. Aim to get there by working out with higher intensity. That's why it's called high intensity interval training. The intervals help, but the higher the intensity gets, the more benefit you get. Max T3, that bookmark I gave you in the book when you signed up for care, that's free online access to high intensity interval training that you can access for the rest of your life. So what are some supplements that help with that? I would say getting a protein in, especially a protein powder and a greens powder right after a workout. Maybe not right after, but within an hour of a workout, your metabolism is primed to absorb those nutrients. To rebuild muscles, right? Those essential amino acids are in that protein. And I've got way up here, but that pure path protein helps, the plant protein helps. It all depends on where you're at, right? We've got 3 different options. And then those greens are just juice dehydrated greens that are very, very nutrient rich. A scoop of this is equal to somewhere between 2 and 4 servings of vegetables. How many should you have in a day? 5 or more, right? I almost think you can't get too many. The detox system absolutely helps to prime that pump. And then the daily defense helps to deal with any inflammation that's in your system, right? So if your knees are flaring up because you're working out, let's deal with some of the inflammation and let me address them. Let me see if the knees are out of alignment at your next adjustment. Because if they flare up during a workout, there's probably something going on. Now let's dive into nutrition. So this is another question, right? Is it necessary and can it replace diet? Are kind of the same question here. So can you replace a healthy diet with nutrition? Or with supplementation? What do you guys think?
No.
No, I don't think you can. I think it's a short-term answer for a long-term problem. Right, we're very good at that in the United States too, right? Let's just throw some money at it and get it fixed quick. Patch up the hole. It's just patch it. Let's not fix it or figure out why we keep getting holes. So we need to optimize the nutrient content of the foods we eat. So even though they're deprived of so many nutrients, there's still ways to get more nutrient content out of our food. That study that said that a head of broccoli now contains only 30% of what it did in the 30s, it wasn't looking at organic food. It was looking at standard heads of broccoli. It wasn't looking at foods grown perfectly without any sort of pesticide use in an ideal environment with the other vegetables around it that help keep bugs away. It was just looking at the standard. So there are things that we can do that increase the nutrient content of the foods that we eat. So if you eat organic food, it has more nutrient content than conventional food. Pretty clear, pretty straightforward. Organic soil has more nutrients in it. The plant absorbs more of those nutrients. Then you eat the plant, you get more of the nutrients, right? Eating foods that are grown in season, right? God has some smarts to them. Foods that are grown in season have more nutrient content than foods grown out of season. Foods ripened on the vine have more nutrients in them than foods ripened artificially with some, was it propylene gas or ethylene gas? I don't know what it is. Try to avoid it,
Yeah.
right? And who was it? Was it you I was talking to about lectins this
Yes.
morning? Yeah. Who knows what a famous lectin? Anybody name a famous lectin? Gluten. Gluten's a lectin. What do lectins do? They're a endotoxin produced by plants when they're not ripe to let animals know not to eat them. If an animal eats an unripe plant, small animals will die from eating the unripe plant because of the lectins inside. Large animals will just get sick and get digestive issues. And as a culture, we've decided that we're going to ripen all these California fruits in the warehouse instead of on the vine so that we can get them to the place where they need to be, and then they look good to eat.
Mhm.
And so what are we consuming a lot of? Lectins, a higher content of lectins. Now, gluten is the most famous lectin, and the types of grain that we grow in the United States actually have a higher gluten count than the grains grown in, say, Europe. Einkorn wheat, which is primarily like an Italian or Southern Europe wheat, is much shorter, but has much less lectin count per ounce than the wheat that we grow in the United States. Another thing that we've done in the United States in the past, I've heard it's outlawed now, but I've heard that to ripen the wheat faster, we will go over a field and spray it with glyphosate in order to get it to ripen faster. Because glyphosate will actually kill the wheat, and the wheat, as like a last gasp of life, will sprout, to give off its offspring so it can keep propagating its line, and then we harvest it right away. Well, glyphosate has the same mechanism as a lectin or as gluten does in the digestive system. It attacks the gut, it attacks the digestive system. So we've got all these different things that are working against this and how to protect our digestive system. We're doing a lot of things wrong if we want to keep ourselves healthy. And as far as maximizing the nutrient content, making sure we're getting the right things out of our food. So when we're looking at the food label, there's some things that draw our attention, right? Fats in bold, right? Because we want to avoid that as much as possible. But it shows you the grams, it shows you the percent of your daily value according to a 2000 calorie diet, shows you cholesterol levels, because obviously cholesterol is the devil and it'll kill you because of heart disease. That's tongue in cheek, right?
Yes.
That's the cardio workshop from last month. You need cholesterol, sodium. Sodium's a necessary nutrient. You need that, but it's going to tell you your RDA percentage. Potassium, it goes down the list as far as what it needs. But the most important part of this nutrition label is not any of this stuff in bold. It's the subprint at the bottom. Anybody guess what it is?
Well, anything that if you're talking about the ingredients in it.
Yes.
Anything that says sugar or,
No, you hit it already, the ingredients list.
yeah, the ingredients list.
The
is-
ingredients list.
Yes.
What's my rule for how many ingredients it should have in it? Or less. Yeah, so that bag of chips, that can of beans,
Mhm.
it's got too much stuff in it to actually be what you're trying to get out of it. So when you buy something, don't even look at the front. The front doesn't even tell you what it is. What tells you what it is that ingredients list on the back. This stuff, yes, you can utilize it. There's some tricks, like if you're trying to keep your carbs low, look at the total carbohydrates minus the dietary fiber. Look at the grams of, like sugar alcohols, and you can figure out how many net carbs you're getting and how that's going to affect your blood sugar. But really, the biggest thing is what's in it. What is it?
Yes.
Right? Because that's what the ingredients list will tell you. And I'll say the same thing about supplements. If you pick this up and the ingredients list is
Yes.
the longest thing on the bottle,
You bet.
you got to be scared there because it's going to have so many fillers in it and artificial chemicals and preservatives. It's not worth your money anymore.
Yes.
Right? So we got to look at that. So number one recommendation for everybody is start moving towards the core plan.
Yes.
The core plan is basically summarized as this. If God made it, eat it. If man made it, leave it. Right?
Right.
If God made it, eat it. If man made it, leave it. Now, if you're dealing with an inflammatory disorder, then we need the advanced plan. So the advanced plan, now we start getting a little bit more restrictive. We cut out grains completely because inflammation, right? Grains are going to inflame us. There's so many carbohydrates in grains, and then the way that our grains are processed, the gluten in there can be very inflammatory. And then our low sugar fruits and vegetables are the only ones that we're going to do. We're going to do berries. We're going to do Granny Smith apples. We're going to do grapefruit, lemon, lime. And we're going to reduce our root vegetables as well. Why? Because they're the higher sugar ones. Not that those things are the things outside of that are bad for us. They're just not, and they're just too high in sugar to help our hormones balance out. So, core plan, we're getting rid of all that processed junk. We have to look at the food sensitivities, right, as well. We want plant-based carbohydrates, and not just plant-based, but plants as carbohydrates. If you're going to do the grains at all on the core plan, it's whole grains. So not just something that says whole on the outside, but is actually whole and not full of sugar and high fructose corn syrup and everything else that they like to throw in there, but actual whole grains. Ancient grains are even better. Things like amaranth and things like quinoa, great grains that you can have. Brown rice, black rice, and red rice, if you guys have heard of those, even better for you as a rice. So, yeah, just go through that. But the advanced plan, just slightly more restrictive. Cut out those grains completely, and then go down to the low sugar fruits and vegetables. So nutritional deficiencies that we need to address them. All right, we can't just get our nutrients from diet. We can try and we can do our best. We're still going to fall short. And this is where I cover myself with that multivitamin. Number one, we have to know how to take calcium. Right? Osteoporosis is a huge deal. If you fall and break your hip and you're over the age of 65, that's basically a death sentence in this country right now. Now, if you have enough bone strength, you're not going to break your hip when you fall. You'll just stumble a little bit. You'll knock into something. It won't break. You're not brittle because you're old. You're brittle because we didn't get the right nutrients in the bones. Calcium is not the only thing your bones are made of. In fact, we have a joint health supplement that has all 16 of the minerals that your bones require in their right ratio that you can take on a daily basis if you're concerned about osteoporosis. You need it to absorb. But for calcium to absorb, it needs to have the right ratio of vitamin D and vitamin K in order to get it. And D3 specifically, not D2, and vitamin K2 or K1 to help that absorb in the sunlight. part of the problem, because we're not lacking for calcium intake, because it's in so many foods, and like, who doesn't drink dairy in the United States? It's on the food pyramid, for goodness sake, right? Right? It's in so many things, but we're getting it by itself, or just with a little bit of D, and not nearly enough K or enough D. And so we have to get that in the right way. Now, it's very prevalent in things like broccoli. Broccoli is a great source. That'll actually have a little bit of D3 in it, and it'll also have some vitamin K in it. Vitamin D, seafood, but even better than that, what's out there right now? Sunshine. I love the summer months because you can take off your shirt and get your dose of D3. What's the best time to get D3? Middle of the day, between 10 and 2, 30 minutes, fully exposed. All right, so I went home today. I made myself lunch. I was grilling a burger, grass-fed burger, prepared the way that God made it. On the grill, took off my shirt, and just stood in front of the grill shirtless. Probably wasn't 30 minutes, but I got more D3 then than I got all last night when I was playing with my kids between the hours of 4 and 6 in the water in the yard, right? Because that's when the sun is giving us the most direct rays. Now, that's it. Once you get to 30 minutes, now you got to worry about too much sun, right? Because it's not the only thing in there. It's not just D3. You have to worry about covering up at that point. So wear a hat, get your shirt on, get some coconut oil on your skin, help get some of that SPF on. But that coconut oil will also protect you because it's a necessary nutrient for skin health. Okay. Is there a question?
Just can you store up vitamin D though?
Yeah, it's fat.
Winter, I mean.
It's
so
fat
we'll-
soluble, so some of it stores, but you can't be in the sun enough during summer to let it go all winter. So that's where I recommend 5,000 IUs a day as just like a baseline, because we still spend so much time inside during the summer. And then in winter months, 10,000 IUs a day in general. If you're a little smaller, maybe a little less. If you're a little larger like me, maybe a little bit more, just depending on your body size and how much you do get outside. Unfortunately, I don't get outside near enough. That going out and grilling with my shirt off is not a common thing. It just happened to be something I did today that just about anybody can do. Now, iron's another one, especially females. That's very abundant in your legumes. Vitamin B12, if you are prone to being more vegetarian or vegan, you're going to be B12 deficient because its most abundant sources are the animal products, things like eggs, especially. Seafood does have a lot of it in there. And if you do want to stay vegan without going to meat for that B12 source, you can get that from some forms of kelp, seaweed, essentially. And that's edible, believe it or not. You need seaweed. Then folate, asparagus is a great source of folate. Folate is another B vitamin. And yes, again, spinach is all these things, but folate, not folic acid.
Right.
Folic acid is the synthetic version, the laboratory produced version. Folate is the real version that your body really needs. Magnesium, again, you can get that in avocados, nuts, and seeds. Spinach, that's the big thing that we need. But if you're going to supplement, you need high quality, right? People were asking about quality.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't matter. Where do I get quality? How can I tell what quality is? Again, look at the content first. Look at what's in it. You know, you look at the capsule as a big indicator. If you grab a capsule and it says gelatin, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but where's that gelatin coming from?
Yeah.
Oftentimes gelatin comes from cows or pigs, and it's coming from the bones. Well, how was that pig raised, or how was that cow raised? Or, you know, God forbid it was a horse, right? You know, any horse eaters in here? Yeah, hope not. But yeah, you have to look at that. What's the source of that gelatin? Sometimes it's from seafood. Is that wild caught seafood, or was that, you know, fresh, you know, wild or farm seafood? And there's a difference in nutrient content. Is it going to create inflammation for you? Is there maltodextrin? One of the biggest things in protein supplements, you grab a protein powder. What's the first ingredient on something like muscle milk? Maltodextrin. What is it? It's a corn sugar. Oh my goodness. Is it worth buying then? If the first ingredient, and here's the rule on ingredient list, if it's the first one, there's more of that in it than anything else. So if it's mostly maltodextrin, why are you buying it for a protein source?
It undoes good you may have been.
Exactly. And I don't hate muscle milk or anything. It usually tastes pretty good. But then what do they sweeten it with? An artificial sweetener. And some of them even put just sugar in there. You know, you look at it, it's like 4 or 5 or 6 different types of sweeteners in it. And 1 or 2 of them are good. They might use some stevia or some erythritol. But then it's like glucose or fructose or oligosaccharides or one of these many, many names for sugar. And it starts fighting against what it's trying to do. And so my rule of thumb with a supplement, just fast and easy, if it has an advertisement on TV,
I'll get it.
they're probably not putting that money into content and quality. And in fact, when we were looking to build our supplements, all these supplements are produced in the same 2 or 3 factories across the country. So they're all pretty much sourced from the same spot. It's just, what are they putting in it? And so we walked into this room, it had this row of shelves, like just floor to ceiling, shelves of supplements. Now in the bottom row were all these like generic brands, and then the row up were like, you know, store brands, and the next row up it was like all these brands you would recognize from like GNC or advertisements on TV, and then the next one were like these multi-level marketing brands, and then the next row up were some brands that I didn't recognize, and then the top row just definitely had never heard of any of them before. And so we asked, you know, what's the deal? What are all these supplements? Are these just all you make? And like, no, this is how well they work from floor to ceiling. And so we handed them our ingredients list and, you know, said all these things. We wanted hypoallergenic. We wanted it to be, you know, follow our dietary plans and have all these things in it that we said it did. And he said, okay, well, where does that put us in this list? But this is top shelf. So we asked, how much should we sell something like this for? He said, probably about $150 a bottle for what you're getting out of it. That's not affordable for most people, right? A 30-day supply, that's just, what, $5 a day?
Yeah.
And yeah, so we lowered the price, ate some of the profit margin for you guys so that it's affordable. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to take my own vitamins if that was the case. But we're giving you top shelf quality at that middle tier price. Just know that you're going to find some lower price supplements out there. Are they going to be worth it? Hardly ever. Hardly ever. Sometimes I'll even be tempted. I'll look at it and I'll flip it around and see the serving size and all the stuff that's in it. I'm like, oh, nope, not at all. Not even worth the price, even when it's discounted on there. So just know what you're getting with that. So our commitment is to always give you quality and pure supplementation. So my daily supplement routine includes all these things. I've got the men's, well, I don't do the women's, but my wife does, right? Men's or women's, the B complex, the optimal omega, the D3, and the magnesium glycinate. So the men's, or the multivitamin rather, just kind of covers your bases. Everything that we've talked about minus, you know, like the omega fatty acids is included in the multivitamin at a basic level, just to make sure that you're not going to fall through the floor on anything. And then the B complex, we want to make sure your B vitamins are covered because that has so much to do with your energy levels. If you are stressed to the max, you're going to be burning through those B vitamins like crazy. You'll start to feel that. You know, the omegas, that's for your healthy fats. You need a right ratio of omega-6 to 3 fatty acids. Yeah, Optimal Omega has that. If you're like most Americans, you're coming off of a standard American diet. You're eating corn-fed beef, and you're eating farm-raised fish, and you're eating fast food 3 to 5 times a week. You probably need an intensive omega-3. That's where the max omega-3 comes in. That's pure omega-3. That doesn't have any of the omega-6s in it. The the conventionally raised cows, the ratio of omega-6 to 3 is 17 to 1. We need to be 4 to 1 to 2 to 1. So we got to get that way down, and we got to get that down inside our bodies. D3, each capsule is about 5,000 IUs. So 1 a day, which is what these daily essentials packets contains in there, will get you through the summer months really, really well. But through the winter months, I grab another bottle of the vitamin D3, and I just take another capsule every single day through the winter months to cover me when I'm not able to get that sunshine. And then the magnesium, again, it's responsible for over 300 enzymatic processes in your body that you need that for. If you're struggling, if you're getting headaches, if you're getting cramping, magnesium is one of those major things. If you're not sleeping well, That magnesium really, really helps with that. If your digestive system's not working well, magnesium really, really helps with that. That's so essential to those things. So I take all of those every day, and we take them in these packets. In fact, if you bought all of these separately, you would pay about $35 more than taking the packets instead. So we save some money on packaging, made it a little bit more convenient to take them all at once, but everything you need all in one place, and then give you a discount on it as well. So that's what I do. That's more convenient that way. And then I just added that Max Cleanse. If I had to predict, just depending on how everybody does with it, this will be part of that Daily Essentials packet. There might be a minor price increase in the next 12 months or so. But that's me on the outside. I'm not the one making decisions on supplementation. I'm just there to say, yes, I agree. Good, right? So then vitamin C is another one that I keep on hand, because if I'm ever fighting anything off, like I did this last week, I was not here on Wednesday because my head felt like it was about to explode. Guess what I took more of? Vitamin C. Guess what I was drinking and eating more of? Things that contain vitamin C and D3 and zinc as well, because those are very beneficial in supporting the immune system, giving that innate intelligence what it needs to help rebuild that and meet any gaps. But that's what I push. And I just want to, since this is supplementation, I'll tell you what I told Margie when we were talking about this earlier. If you're ever feeling unwell, megadose with vitamin C. And how you tell that is you're going to be drinking a lot of water because you're not feeling well, right? That's good. Stay hydrated when you're not feeling well, you're fighting something. Take 2 vitamin C every time you get a new glass of water, until when you go to the bathroom, your urine turns neon. Once it's gone neon, you know that you've met your body's max capacity. The extra, because it's water soluble, is spilling over into the kidneys, which is filtering it out through your urinary system. Once it goes clear again, start taking the vitamin C. The vitamin C in itself actually has some intelligence in it to fight off invaders. It's actually, if you put it on cancer cells, it will fight cancer cells. Won't kill it or get rid of it or cure it, but it's beneficial in helping your immune system support and fight off those. All right, that's why I like playing. So action steps. Number 1, just by being here tonight, you get 15% off all supplements. Some of you might have bought some earlier and I gave you the discount, but you also got your handout, right? Yeah, this is Father's Day week, and I'm a dad, so I really love Father's Day. So you get to use in conjunction with that 15% off any of these discounts as well. So what do we have off the Max Screens? That goes for capsules or powder. I will say the powder is about 12 weeks behind, so 3 months behind, just because of how shipping works in times of COVID, right? $10 off your Daily Essentials packets, plus 15% for being here. That's like $25 off the already $30 off those supplements today for getting those. You save $10 all week when you buy 2 bottles of magnesium. That one for you, one for a loved one. And then $5 off your probiotics. So if you're fighting anything, I don't recommend our probiotic all the time. If you ever finish our bottle of probiotic, I expect you to buy somebody else's the next time, just to keep the streams of probiotics going through. And then the free vitamin D if you purchase any protein powder. That includes pre-orders on protein powder tonight. If you pay for it tonight, get a free vitamin D3. And then if you know anybody this week that hasn't had their nervous system checked, they're getting 60% off this week on that. So normally you go to the imaging center, it's like $2,000 for a set of x-rays. Come to my office, normally it's over $100. Come to my office this week for that exam, for those x-rays. It's just $42 for that. If you've got immediate family that needs to get checked, talk to me. We'll make sure that they get checked as well. So steps, number 1, nervous system check. Number 2, make sure your diet is healthy, right? And then supplement where you need. If you want to talk about advanced testing, we need to do some muscle testing, or we need to do some pulse work as well. We can absolutely talk about that, but that would be advanced. Once you've covered your basics, then we go to the advanced level. We can do it by vitamin 201, right? We'll do that class. So upcoming events, I'm going to be closed after this week. I'm going on vacation, right? So I get to take a day off. So that'll be the 19th through the 22nd. So if you typically have Saturday, Monday, or Tuesday appointments, make sure you reschedule those for the next week. And then on the 3rd of July through the 5th of July, I'll also be out of town for the 4th of July weekend celebrating Independence Day. There might also be a surprise day off in there just so that I can help my family move because we just got a new house. So yeah, might have to take a little bit of extra time for that. So be on the lookout for those. And then next month, we'll be having more workshops. And any topics you guys want to hear about, you let me know. We'll make sure we work them into the schedule. I usually cover the big ones, but you never know if there's something that needs to be covered. Anything from sleep to, specific symptoms that you're dealing with.
Pain,
Yes.
pain seems to feel like such a
Yeah.
ongoing thing. I
Yeah.
mean, some of the people say, and I went, what is pain?
Yeah. Yeah. What is pain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just-
Great question. You guys can teach the workshop on pain now, right? Is pain good or bad?
It's good.
It's good.
It's good.
Certain.
When you get it, it's good to have it because it tells you something's
Wrong.
bad, right? So we don't curse the pain, we look for the cause, and then we look to God to offer the solution. So, all right. Any questions for me, guys?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
When we first walked and you were talking about human being, that there's no human being two are alike, huh? What about twins?
What about what?
Twins,
Twins?
yeah,
What about twins?
are they alike?
Are they alive?
Alike.
Alike? They're not completely alike. They're similar, but they're not identical. Even identical twins have differences. So the most classic example of this would be some Russian Siamese twins. I forget their names exactly, but they were born conjoined at the hips. They shared legs, they shared hips, they shared sexual reproduction organs, they shared immune systems, digestive systems. What they had different were lungs and heart. One of them got measles, the other one didn't.
Mm-hmm.
One of them had heart disease, the other one didn't. So were they identical? Even being identical and conjoined in some countries, the same person? Not actually. So even identical twins have some significant differences. And from a genetics perspective, I'll actually draw this out since this is an advanced crowd here. So your genes are not your destiny, right? Because your genes are really just inside this nucleus, inside this cell, and there's these little things called ribosomes inside your cell that are constantly in and out of that nucleus, snipping genetic material out of there, changing the instructions, and inserting new DNA into that cell. That's actually how the COVID shot's working. They're adding new DNA or RNA instructions into the cell to try to get it to do a specific thing. It's basically a genetic modification of the human cell as opposed to a plant cell, right? So what impacts what those ribosomes do is what's going on out here. If this is inflamed, it affects the cell membrane. The cell membrane processes that information. It responds. It tells ribosomes. It tells mitochondria. It tells all this different stuff what to do, and then that spits out different stuff that then impacts what these ribosomes are doing to either snip and cut or add new genetic information. And so how long does it take for identical twins to become different? The second they split off inside the mother's womb.
Really?
They are genetically different because the cell is encountering different spots inside the mom. Even if it's the exact identical starting material, it ends up becoming different. So genes are not your destiny.
Okay.
If you were born with the breast cancer gene, are you guaranteed to have breast cancer?
No.
No. Are you more likely to get breast cancer?
Yeah.
Yes. Because if you do the things that create breast cancer, you're already primed to get breast cancer. Right? If you don't have the gene, Does it mean that you're not going to get breast cancer?
No.
No, because if you do the things that create breast cancer, guess what happens? Cell adapts and it grows the conditions to create breast cancer genetically.
But then sometimes, let's say among twins, one usually ends up weaker
Mhm.
than the other one.
Yeah, and you can say that one stole nutrients from the other one, maybe just the spot in the placenta was more nutrient rich than the other one. If you start off with less nutrients, you're going to be fighting for more your whole life. So yeah, no, it's a great question, you know, and I'm not here to say anybody's wrong, right? But the way that we've approached this, you know, our simplifications really of the sciences that we've learned and trying to take away the godhood of God and put it into science is really where we've missed the boat on health. So never trust science without the light of God to reveal his truth about what we're learning through science.
Since you mentioned God, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
I always heard that God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit are the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes
So
and
how
no.
come they got different names?
Yes and no. They're not the same, but they are the same.
What is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit?
Yeah. So here's where I'm going to stop the video, right? Because everybody that's tuned in wants to learn about health. I was a pastor once, right?